everyone, and welcome back. It's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and today we will be making this pearl and seed bead bracelet together using some common sizes of beads that you may already have in your stash. The list of materials as well as links to these materials will be located right down below the video. You can find everything you need though at eurekacrystalbeads.com, and not only in these colors but all sorts of other colors as well. Feel free to swap out the pearl beads for Druk beads as I have on the left hand side in that greenish color. We'll be using some 8mm rounds, some 4mm rounds, as well as some size 8/0 and 11/0 seed beads. To work up this bracelet, we'll be using 2 beading needles, so you'll have a length of thread with 1 needle on each side, and I'll be using the 6-pound test Fireline today, and a needle of a size 10, 11, or 12 should work just fine. Beyond that, I will be using some wire guards like you can see there at either end of the bracelet, but that is optional. You can end that in a different way if you choose to, and attach whatever clasp you like. The bracelet we'll be making today will come out to be about 7.5 inches, give or take just a little bit, and you are welcome to adjust your length accordingly, but this is the length that you'll get if you follow the video tutorial exactly. With all that out of the way, you can go ahead and thread your beading needles, one on either side of a comfortable length of beading thread, and then we will jump into this tutorial. We'll begin this tutorial with our 8mm and 4mm beads, and you can see I have a needle on my left-hand side and my right-hand side. But first, what we're going to do is just string on 3 of our 4mm beads. And you can pull those down to the center of your thread, so just holding both of those needles, just go ahead and run those down, and then get your thread situated again so you have your left and your right. Then on both sides, we're going to pick up an 8mm and a 4mm. And we can go ahead and pick up one more 4mm on this left-hand side, and pull all these down to the center. And then you're going to take your right hand needle and cross through that last 4mm bead that you just put on the left hand side. And then these needles are going to end up swapping places when you pull this. And this is what you'll want to have to get started. This next step is going to repeat, and this is what you can continue doing to achieve whatever length of bracelet that you like. So you're going to pick up a 4mm, an 8mm, and a 4mm on one side. Pull those down. And then on the other side, you'll pick up the same thing. 4mm, 8mm, 4mm, but go ahead and pick up one 4mm again, because this one you're going to be crossing through with your other needle. So take the needle that's on the right hand side and just cross through that second 4mm and pull your threads, and of course they will swap places again. So this is what you'll continue repeating all the way to the end of your bracelet. We'll do one more together. And I'll need to do this 7 more times in order to get the length that we saw in the example bracelets. So once again, a 4mm, an 8mm, and a 4mm. Then on the other needle, a 4mm, an 8mm, and 2 4mm. Pull those down, and then cross through that last 4mm with your right hand needle, and we have another section on. So repeat that step 6 more times, then we'll meet back and continue on with the next step. Alright, so as you can see, I have the length of the base that is all beaded up, and we are going to continue with the next step where we add some extra beads throughout this piece. Now let's go ahead and attach our wire guard first. So on both sides, in order to do that, we're going to pick up an 8/0, a 4mm, and then an 11/0, and then you can go ahead and pick up your wire guard and sew around that. You'll do the same thing on the other side, pick up an 8/0, a 4mm, and an 11/0. And then sew around the wire guard, this time going around the other way. And you can continue by sewing through the next 3 beads. And then cross through the 4mm that's right there. Now take your other needle and continue sewing down the next 3 beads on this side. And then cross through that 4mm bead going in the opposite direction. And you can give that a little pull. You don't have to pull it super tight right now, but that at least gets one of our wire guards in place for the end of the bracelet. And now what we want to do is be coming out of these first 8 O's to get started with our next part of this process. So I'm just going to take the right hand needle, I'm going to continue sewing down through the 4mm and the next 8 O, and I'll do that with the left hand needle as well, sewing down through those next 2 beads, just like that. And I've turned my piece vertically, it's just a little bit easier for me to work this way. So now with my right hand needle, the one coming out of this 8mm, we're going to pick up 3 8 O's and then go directly up through the adjacent 8mm bead. And then you can pick up 3 more 8 O's, go back down that first 8mm bead, and then proceed through the next 4mm, pick up an 8 O, and sew through the next 4mm and the next 8 O. Then take your needle that's on your left hand side and you're going to want to sew through those new 8 O seed beads, that strip of 3 that you just added. Then go up through the 8mm, then go through those other new 3 8 O's, and then go down the 8mm, as well as the next 4mm. And then to match the other side, of course, you'll pick up an 8 O, and then sew through the next 4mm and the next 8mm. You're going to repeat this all the way down. We'll do one more together. So once again, on my right hand needle, I'm going to pick up 3 8 O's. I'm going to sew up through the adjacent 8mm. Pick up 3 more 8 O's. Sew back down the first 8mm. Then I'm going to also sew through the next 4mm. I'll pick up an 8 O, then sew through the next 4mm and 8mm. With my other needle, I'm going to sew through those 3 8 O's, up through the 8mm, through the next 8 O's, down through the 8mm and the 4mm, pick up an 8 O, and sew through the 4mm and 8mm. And now I'm coming out of the 8mm that we get to next on both sides. So continue doing that. If you need to, go ahead and back up the video, but continue that process all the way to the other end of your bracelet, and then we'll meet back. All right, and welcome back. So you should have something that looks like this so far, and I actually just ran out of the thread I was using, and I knotted that several times on each side and wove in the pieces and trimmed off the excess. So now I have a new piece of thread with my needle on both sides, and it'll be simple to pick back up with that. I'm just going to simply cross through that pearl on the end. If you have extra thread, then great. You can just cross through that pearl right there, and we're going to do what we did on the other side in order to attach the other wire guard. So on one side we'll pick up an 8/0, then a 4mm, then an 11/0, and go around our wire guard. And then on the other side we'll pick up an 8/0, a 4mm, and an 11/0. And then we're going to cross through that wire guard going the other way. Pulling both of these threads gently. That needle's going to go over there. It's going to switch places. And I'm just going to proceed on through the other side of the wire guard as well as the next 3 beads. Then pick up the other needle and sew down these 3 beads. And then we'll be crossing back through that 4mm. And now with my other needle crossing through that, going the other way, make sure your thread sits in the groove of the wire guard. And give those pieces of thread just a little pull to hold that in place. And take a moment to get yourself situated. I like to turn my work this way. And get your needles on the correct side that you'll be working with. And one other thing I just did was I added my last rows there of my 8/0s. I had neglected to do that when I ran out of thread, but now we're ready to go with the next steps. So now with my right hand needle, I'm going to go down through this next 4mm. And then I'm going to go over to the left and go through the next 2 8/0s. So I want to be coming out of the central 8/0. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, going down through that next 4mm. And then this time sewing over to the right and going through those first 2 seed beads. So now we're crisscrossing through the central 8/0 right there. And now what we'll do is pick up on our right side 2 11/0s, 1 8/0, and 2 11/0s. And then look for your next group of 3 8/0s right there. I'm going to go through just the central 8/0 that we get to next. And I'm kind of just crisscrossing through. Now on the left side, I'll be picking up 2 11/0s. And then just go through that 8/0 that's in place. Pull. Now pick up 2 11/0s. And then go through that central 8/0 that we get to next and cross through that one in the other direction. Then go ahead and pull your threads and you should have this little X pattern in place over the 8mm beads. And we just do something a little bit different in the next section. We'll be picking up with our right hand needle an 8/0, a 4mm, and an 8/0. Just like we did before, we're going to cross through that next center 8/0. Just go through the opposite direction there. And then pick up your left hand needle and you're going to pick up an 8/0. Sew through that new 4mm bead. Pick up another 8/0. And then sew through the center 8/0 in the opposite direction. And when you give this all a pull and get everything in place, you have this other little mini X in the next section with a pearl in the center. So you're going to repeat those steps all the way down to the other end of your bracelet. Of course, now we're in the step where we're going to be using the 11/0s and the 8/0s. And we'll do one more of these sequences together. So once again, we'll pick up 2 11/0s. 1 8-0, and 2 11-0s. Cross through that central 8-0 in the next row. With the left hand needle, I'll pick up 2 11-0s. Then I'll sew through that new 8-0. Pick up 2 more 11-0s. And then sew through the central 8-0 and pull these and make sure the beads are all in place to make that next little X pattern. And then once again, for this section, we'll be doing an 8-0, a 4mm, and an 8-0. Cross through the central 8-0 that's in the next row. And then on our other needle, pick up an 8-0. Sew through the 4mm bead. Pick up one more 8-0. And cross through the central 8-0 in that next row. And we'll pull all this together once again. Just keep everything straightened up as you go. And this is what you should have so far. So just keep repeating that all the way down to the other side of your bracelet, and then we will meet back. All right, and welcome back again. So once you have crisscrossed through that last 8-0 in the last row of 3, you are done. So you can go ahead and make several half-hitch knots on either side of your beading thread with each needle to secure that. And once you are ready and happy with the security of your piece, you can trim off the excess. All right, so that's one side secure. I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then you can just add a jump ring onto each side as well as your clasp of choice. And there is our finished bracelet along with the other 2 examples. And as a reminder, you can find everything you need to make these and much more at Eureka Crystal Beads. I'll leave the full list of materials, the quantities that you'll need, and the links right down below the video so you can get your hands on all of these items if you don't already have what you need in your beading stash. I want to give you all a big thank you for joining me today for this tutorial. I'm so glad to have you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know if you plan to give this a try or have given it a try. Also, give the video a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe while you're here, and feel free to share the video with your other bead-loving friends. That's all I have for now. Until next time, I will see you all again real soon. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading.